Research clearly shows that substance abuse, both alcohol and drugs, is a significant risk factor that increases domestic violence, specifically serious domestic violence. What increased provision for limiting substance abuse could be provided in the budget, noting that it will, in the long term, save costs and lives as domestic violence and its associated social implications would be reduced?
I want to start with you, Janine, because we had a kind of that moment of crisis, that national crisis, and there was a lot of focus on domestic violence, as there should be. You know, some of the issues have been dominated by other issues now, but it seemed to me quite absent, alcohol and substance abuse from that conversation.
Absolutely, and I mean, and that's not to negate that we're going to see money go to fund emergency housing crisis and to do positive things. But this comes to the whole issue of prevention, which goes to health, which goes to mental health. We look at this issue when the Bondi stabbings came up recently, and we found that state governments had closed down all the mental health facilities that led to people screaming, well, look at what you've done, you've closed down 2 or 3 in the last year or 2. Again, this is it. It's going to prevention rather than reacting after the crisis comes. Governments aren't good at it, particularly state governments, as we know. This is, I think, probably more a state government issue, as Matt would know. I think it is that simple. Prevention, not reacting after a crisis, which governments tend to really be doing. That's their expertise.
Because we have had this national reckoning around our domestic violence rates and intimate partner murders, but do you feel like we've missed that part of the conversation? The way alcohol fuels this, there's gambling as well that a lot of people who work in the sector talk about?
Yeah, I would say that when we're talking about domestic violence, the causes of it are complex, well aerated, but as you know, the points have been made, governments have been a bit slow on the uptake, right? So, you know, there's been attention from government with regards to domestic violence now for, I would say, about 5 years. It's been going on for decades. And I speak as someone who has experienced that. Things are getting better for the victims, but the number of perpetrators are still the same, I would argue. We speak to people in the field, they'll tell you that there's now more reporting of domestic violence, hence the numbers are much higher. But we are not addressing the core cause, and that is a very complex problem.
And look, I think there is a role in the federal government here in relation to things like how, you know, so social media that is fueling both sort of alcohol, but also porn, and also gambling. Which all these pieces, you know, Jess Hill, who's a real expert in this space and has been studying it, saying, you know, these are linked. You know, we do have the tragedy of you know, a woman a week dying from domestic violence, and we need to be pulling, you know, all stops. And I think you're absolutely right that alcohol abuse and substance abuse is part of that, and we need to look at, you know, and be braver, to be honest. And I think, you know, I know that sort of myself and David and others have been pushing the government to say, take action on online gambling. You know, that is driving harm. Take action in these areas.
I've got to say, what interesting points you just made about porn and all, you know, this kind of content, because just today, separately, but I do think they're adjacent, X had a win in court, and Elon Musk is very happy. If you look at his X, is that what it's called? His tweet, his X thing that he put out, I don't know, thank you, I've never tried that before. And he sort of says, basically, this is a win for freedom of speech. So the Australian government's actually not having much success, David, when it comes to trying to use these laws. He's had a win.
I guess he has had a win. I mean, this is the same guy who went after some high schooler for publishing his flight details. So he's clearly not about all freedom of speech. Just freedom of speech that's good for his platform. This is the conversation that I think we need to be having about our community is when we give these freedoms, there's always a point at which we say, well, that's actually impinging on other people's freedoms now, and so we're not going to let you do that. And I think when it comes to spreading material that could, I guess, lead to more of the horrendous things we saw. Radicalisation, or even, you know, online pornography. I think we've got to actually be saying, well, no, we are going to draw a line here and say, we have freedom of speech, but this is actually impinging on other people's freedoms now. So it's a really interesting case and a tough one for the government.
It's a really tough one. Janine, final word to you on it.
Look, anything Elon Musk wins, you know. I did have a problem.
Shows that it's harder to take him on.
There is an issue with the fact that we can limit what is put up here in Australia. Our laws can apply to here, but there is an argument that we cannot limit what is put up elsewhere in the world. I mean, this is a legal argument. Whether we like it or not, that is what's happened. And as I say, I hate to see Elon Musk win anything, but sometimes you have to accept that's it, and we have to do what we can here.
Okay, we need to protect our kids.
Yep.
That's the thing I think the most important.
And that's